Do you think that a pilot's life is all about glitz and glamour? We bet it is not. Pilots also have to deal with harsh realities of their job. Inside the cockpit, airline pilots live very secret lives. In fact, little is known of what they do behind those potentially bulletproof doors. Until now, much of our knowledge regarding their lives behind the cockpit doors only came from fellow pilots, while the rest can be only deduced from regulations handed down by aviation regulatory bodies. To let you know more about the lives of men and women behind the controls on your next flight, here are 13 things pilots are surprisingly not allowed to do inside the cockpit. No beard. Most commercial airline pilots can only wear a mustache. Captains are not allowed to grow a thick beard, which can impede the working of an oxygen mask when the need arises. Since many planes cruise at a height of 40,000 feet, they have an inbuilt system that helps everyone on board to breathe normally. However, in the rare instance, if the system fails, passengers and flight crew members are trained on how to wear an oxygen mask until the plane lands on the closest airport. No coffee for Airbus A350 pilots or any other drinks. Spilling liquids on delicate electronic panels have already led to several airplane crashes. For that matter, since recently, if a pilot was to take coffee, water, or any other liquid, he would have to go somewhere else. No drugs or alcohol. The Federal Aviation Administration (FAA's) drugs and alcohol regulations specifically prohibit pilots from performing flight crew member duties for an airline with prohibited drugs in their systems. They also restrict pilots from flying or attempting to fly an aircraft within 8 hours of consuming alcohol, or if they have an alcohol concentration of 0.04% or greater according to FAA rules. No more than 8 working hours at night and 9 during the day. Since planes can fly on autopilot, captains are legally allowed to take control naps during long flights, but they have to coordinate using verbal confirmations to ensure that at least one of them is awake while the other takes a rest. No chatting below 10,000 feet. This height is considered the critical phase of a flight, which occurs when the plane is taking off or landing. Most plane crashes occur below this altitude. That's why the stereo cockpit rule is prohibiting pilots from doing anything. This helps them to focus on controlling the plane either until it lands or achieves cruising altitude where they can engage autopilot. No reading books except newspapers. Because newspapers are usually filled with many short articles, it means pilots' attention is not taken for a dangerous length of time. But the same can't be said for novels and other lengthy books, which are banned from the cockpit. It is believed a crew member could too easily get swept up in a story and might fail to monitor the flight deck regularly enough. No listening to music or radio. While many airline pilots could bring an iPod or use their own headset capable of listening to music, most airlines prohibit it. Because when the mindset gets occupied with music, a pilot may get distracted and the consequences can be very bad. No food choice. You want to have your favorite dish in the cabin? Then you need to be fast to claim it. However, pilot and co-pilot never get the same food as each other, in case if one of the meals is contaminated. This is to reduce the risk of both pilots getting dangerously ill enough to not be able to command the flight. Not choosing your partner. Pilots rarely know who they are going to fly with until they take their place in the cockpit. They are also not allowed to refuse the assigned colleagues whatever the personal disagreements they may have. No gadgets at any time during the flight. Please turn off your electronic devices or switch them to flight mode. Most passengers know this phrase by heart. What they might not know is pilots also follow the same rule in the cockpit. New regulations from FAA prohibit pilots from personal use of laptops, cell phones, and other electronic devices while they are on duty in the cockpit. They must follow the two-man rule. It means that there have to be at least 2 people in the cockpit at all times. If one of the pilots needs to use the bathroom, maybe stretch their legs or drink some water, a flight attendant has to stay with the second pilot. It's a strictly regulated procedure. This is to ensure that in case the captain left in the cockpit become incapacitated, the cabin crew member can provide first aid and call back the first pilot. No landing and going home right away. Pilots are usually first to board the plane and last to leave it. Before the trip, they have to do pre-flight checks, and after the trip, they have to do post-flight checks. Once all the passengers have deplaned and the flight crew has assembled passenger belongings, the pilots will make a decision to leave the aircraft powered or powered down. Just because it might be pilot's last flight of the day doesn't mean it is the last flight of the day for the aircraft. No visitors inside the cockpit. Passengers sometimes want to sit there in a flight to see what it's like, but it is against federal aviation regulations. So except crew members, pilots are not allowed to let anyone inside the cockpit. Visits to the cockpit during flights were banned by air transit authorities in the aftermath of 9/11 and with a heightened awareness of security concerns. If the captain and the second pilot are the people who's responsible to safely fly the plane and land it at the destination, it's the task of flight attendants to make the flight itself as comfortable and safe as possible for each and every passenger on the aircraft. And while doing these things, they have to follow a strict set of rules and regulations in and out of the sky, which is also created for security reasons. Here are some few things that flight attendants not allowed to do. No eating in front of passengers. They are human beings and need energy. Energy is food. Flight attendants do not eat in front of passengers. They eat in the galleys. Sometimes airline food, sometimes food they bring on board, but they are generally limited to small snacks or meals that can be quickly consumed during their breaks or meal times. No sleep at work. Even the passengers on an overnight flight always will be counting on flight attendants in case if they need any help. Whether they need water or medical assistance, flight attendants should constantly be there to provide it. For this reason, it's almost impossible to have some sleep during the flight. Cannot let passengers see them out of uniform. If you have been to an airport even once in your lifetime, you certainly might have seen a crew of flight attendants trailing their suitcases, and all of them were wearing uniform of their airline. Now you know why they were not wearing some other clothes. It's because flight attendants aren't allowed to show up in front of passengers out of their uniform. Sure, some flight attendants prefer changing to their uniform on a plane before the flight, and it's fine, provided that they don't communicate with passengers before they do so. No promoting their outside interests. While on a flight and while wearing their uniform, flight attendants are not allowed to promote any of their personal interests. It means that in case your flight attendant is offering you to buy you anything or saying you to follow them on social media, you can file a complaint against them to the airline. No tips can be taken. Most of us are used to give tips for the services we liked. So if a flight attendant on board of the plane was very nice and respectful to you and you want to thank them with your tip, you should know that they probably won't accept it. No lifting bags. Some passengers think that helping them to store their bags in overhead bins is one of the duties of flight attendants. In fact, flight attendants aren't allowed to lift your bags due to the risk of injury. The only thing flight attendant can do for you is pushing the bag into the bin when it is already there and close the door. Cannot bring anything on board as they wish. Just like passengers, flight attendants have to follow certain rules about the things that they can or cannot take on board the aircraft. There is no open door policy for them, and they also have to undergo a security check before entering the plane. Anything that doesn't go through the security check must be left out, and there are no exceptions to this rule. They aren't allowed to wear their hair down. Hair below the shoulder should always be tied up in a bun or a ponytail. Some airlines have stricter rules and only buns are allowed. Hair has to be clean, neat and tidy at all times. Crazy coffee hairs, dreadlocks or buns up in the middle of the top of the head are usually not permitted.